Hello everyone and welcome back. This week the new anthology arrived for me as well, and so for today I prepared a full unboxing and presentation of the items that I've got, talking a little bit about the sound and what they brought new, as well as talking a bit about the Anthology Documentary Series, which was re-released now in Full HD and 4K on Disney Plus in the past couple of days. So we're going to start with the unboxing. If you're curious to see what items I've got, stick around. So here's the box. It had the label here from the seller. The seller that I bought this from, the store, is JPC from Germany, jpc.de. I like the store. They have a lot of stuff, and they have the new stuff as soon as it comes out, but for me this arrived today on Monday. So basically, in order to have it on release day, it should have arrived on Friday. The fact that the weekend was in the middle is not such a huge problem, really. It arrived also in the post office, so in the post office sometimes there can be delays in picking up stuff. Anyway, it seems to be secured relatively okay, but I noticed this as well. I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. I'm hoping inside the padding is enough to keep the contents safe. So let's see. I'm just gonna cut these things off first. Let's try to seal this. Okay, I'm gonna pull this up. This is a sort of a paper type of tape, so it cuts relatively easy. Okay, so they are using this polystyrene foam isolators, which is good. This should be the CD box set. Okay, you can actually see there's a label on it. Beatles 8 CD, Beatles Anthology. Made in Germany, right? Oh, and we also have the date here, 27th of October. Guessing this is when it was packed. Not sure if that's the production date. Also, let's see how the record is inside there. Okay. Here we have the items. So Anthology 4, the Beatles Anthology Collection, the CD box. I bought it from there because I got a better price, or a slightly better price, and buying it from the UK would have cost me, again, the import and all of that. I could have bought it from the German store, the German Beatles store, the Universal store. I just chose GPC, I guess, for the slightly better price. Anyway, the middle item here is actually a set of a few inner sleeves, polyline inner sleeves, that the GPC store was offering free of charge with every purchase. These ones respectively. I'm going to use them, but not for these records for sure. The records which I care more about, I'm trying to use the mobile fidelity type of sleeves. And this is the Anthology 4. We're going to take a look in detail. So I guess because this is already kind of unpacked, we can take a look at this first. On the front, it looks pretty good. Looks good on the back as well. No creases, no bent corners or anything, no damage to the outer wrap. Okay, let's take a look. So when I will unpack it and unseal it, I'll try to keep this hype sticker. A career-spanning view of the Beatles' creative process in the studio and beyond includes 13 previously unreleased tracks, rare recordings and rehearsals, plus the new Jeff Lynne mixes of Free as a Bird and Real Love, and the final single, Now and Then. Now, I wasn't aware, I mean, it says new Jeff Lynne mixes. I was thinking that these new mixes were done by Giles Martin. But anyway, either I was wrong or this is wrong, but probably I was wrong. I'm gonna check this and come back to you later in the video. Anthology 4, okay, and the back, it has kind of the same aspect as the other anthologies. From what I've seen, the barcode is a little bit different than the original ones in the 90s, and this is also true for Anthology 1 through 3, even though we don't have them here. And we see we have here at the top additional production and mixing by Giles Martin. So yeah, that's a little bit weird, but we'll see. Looks good. Made in Germany sticker, made it optimal. Hopefully they have done a better job with this than they did with the mono box set, at least for me. And the contents of this, I mean, we can go through them pretty fast. Side 1, I saw her standing there, money, this boy, tell me why, if I fell, Matchbox, every little thing, and I need you. Side 2, I've just seen a face in my life, Doorman, Got to Get You Into My Life, Love You Too, Strawberry Fields Forever, and the instrumental of She's Leaving Home. I already can tell that this is my favorite side of all of them. Side 3, Baby You're a Rich Man, All You Need Is Love, rehearsal, the Fool on the Hill instrumental, I Am the Walrus, the orchestra overdub. Side 4, we have Hey Bulldog instrumental, Good Night, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, You're So Square, Baby I Don't Care, Studio Jam, Helter Skelter, I Will, Can You Take Me Back, and Julia rehearsal. And the last record has Get Back, Octopus's Garden rehearsal, Don't Let Me Down, the rooftop performance, You Never Give Me Your Money, Here Comes the Sun, Something, strings only version. And then on side 6 we have the 3 post-90s Beatles tracks, or Threedles tracks as they used to be called, Free as a Bird, Real Love, and Now and Then. From what I understood, even Now and Then has a 2025 mix, so we'll see how that sounds as well. This is the Anthology 4. Let's try and unseal this now. Okay, I think I'm gonna, in the end, I need to keep, or I want to keep the hype sticker. I'm gonna be very careful with this so as to not cut into the records or covers. Okay. Looking pretty good. Let's open this up. See what we have in here. Again, the similar layout as the original Anthology albums on vinyl. You've seen them on the channel. I have I think the 2017 the Agostini versions, which sound really good and look really good. So contents on the first side. In the middle you have very nice pictures, real nice glossy color, lovely. And some more contents on the last side, along with some credits here on the bottom side. Right, there we go. You can see those closer actually. Let me just give you a glimpse of these credits, or copyright information more accurately. Okay. Let's take a look at the records themselves now. Okay, I was kind of expecting this to also have a kind of a booklet inside. Okay, sorry for turning this upside down, but I couldn't get the record out. So here it is, the first record, the classic Apple and Half Apple labels. It's good that they use this polyline inner, and these white ones I think are slightly better than the black ones that were used for some of the records in the mono collection. So on the surface this looks pretty good, and I'm gonna do what I didn't do for the mono collection initially and put some more light onto this, some LED lighting, just to be sure. But looking at it with some of the LED lighting from my phone, I don't see any significant scuffs or anything like that. Okay, so it looks pretty good. Okay, let's check out the matrices as well. Not sure if you can actually see them. It's BP38599-10, and it's an S and a small sign which I cannot really distinguish. And then we have 7808488. And finally, there's two initials here. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see them, which are etched. It's a T plus, I think, N. Okay. Side B. Similar situation. Oh. Some interesting scuffs and lines on the run out. Not sure if you can see them. Otherwise, just a little bit of dust and debris. Second record. Well, I mentioned the booklet. It doesn't have a booklet because the contents of the booklet are on the inner sleeve. Okay, here we go. Sides 3 and 4, looking pretty good as well. Oh, that's my finger here. Okay. I'll let you know if I find any other scuffs or there's any problem with the sound. But given that these sleeves are quite aired out, they weren't sticking to the record, they didn't seem to be too pressed from the sleeves, I would assume we will not have the same problems that we did with some of the records in the mono box set. So I am assuming this will not be the case. Let's see the last one, side 5. There we go. Pretty good looking. And side 6. Okay, this is just seems to be like some debris or lint. Yeah, I'll clean this up. A few like light dents, scratches here on the run-in, but definitely they will not catch the needle. So overall, I mean, at first glance, looking good. These are the records from the Anthology 4 vinyl release. We'll come back in a few seconds with the CD box set. Okay, CD box set again. We have the label here as well. Let's open this up. Okay, here it is. Okay. Here it is. Looking decently good. The outer wrap is not super tight. That's not such a big problem for me. Made in Germany again, and is looking pretty good. Let's take a look here at the bottom. We have the Apple Universal logo, the barcode, and then the copyright information referring to UMG Supply Chain Limited, which I guess it's put as a manufacturer, but I guess is just like another sort of way of saying that Universal has some subsidiaries or partners which are producing this specifically. Okay, so overall it looks good. This one we will unseal, of course, because otherwise there's no way for us to take the discs out. There's no way to keep the outer wrap. But I do prefer this box set a little bit more, and I will show you some examples of how I hoped this would have been. Anyway, this is the small outer sleeve. You have the contents of Anthology 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this picture that is now basically the face of the Anthology collection. Okay. This one is looking pretty good. It's all glossy. No scratches, no anything, so that's good news. And now, let's take a little bit the discs out. The box is black on the inside. Okay. And before we move on, these are the original anthologies. I have the 90s versions, so got them online from different sellers actually, in pretty good shape. I really liked, and I mentioned this I think before, I really like these fat boxes. They call these, double jewel cases. They have a lot of space. The discs are held inside pretty well using, the disc holders. It's true they have plastic, but I just felt kind of nice about this version of releasing CDs, especially from the 80s and 90s. Obviously, we're not talking about the same thing. We have some digipacks. The digipacks here, though, are slightly different than the digipacks used for most Beatles releases from the past, 10, 15 years. And this includes the digipacks for the Red and the Blue albums, right? Because they are a bit wider, or at least appear to be wider. That's because the face of the album is usually up until here, like the front cover of the original album, and then you have this strip. Here they kept the strip colored within the same color of the digipack itself. But in the albums from the stereo collection from 2009, and even the ones that appear afterwards, this might be a different color, so it gives a different appearance. Here, for these ones from Anthology, you don't have that strip anymore that separates the front cover of the album from sort of the spine, which I like better. They are the same, it seems like the same width, but they are presented with the full cover, which again, I tend to like. So I like those strips to a certain extent. They offer a specific, specificity to the Beatles releases, but at the same time, these look better like this, and you can do this as well, right? Which is an intended side effect of the Anthology presentation. It was for the records, for the original CDs, so you can do this and still it looks good, right? Okay, these look good in terms of how the shape is. They don't seem to have any scratches, cuts, or anything else. I do like, again, the digipacks I mentioned before, I like the pockets with the booklet inside and everything. The one thing that I don't like about these digipacks is the way that the discs are held inside. I do feel like this is, a bigger risk for people to scratch the records and to scuff them as they pull them in and out. That's one thing. The other thing is that sometimes when you try to pull these out and you can't, and you don't want to scratch them, you kind of have the option to push on it like this, but this will cause some of them to crack here or to rip, which actually happened to the Red and Blue albums for me. Maybe I'm just clumsy, I will not deny that, but still, it's a little bit, you see? I'm pulling really, I'm pulling right now, and it really is, the disc is really, really rubbing against the surface inside. So I kind of don't like that. What I did like, and I was hoping they will do the same for this box set, but it didn't, is this Lennon Anthology box set, which of course is from a few years back. Quite a few years back. But what I liked about this also used this format of digipack somehow, and it's kind of similar to this one. The difference is, first of all, inside it had this custom holder, plastic holder, you see, for the discs. And this is actually a good idea. I think it was a good idea. But moreover, I'm just going to show this very quickly. So this, actually this is the booklet, which they put in a special separate holder, which is nice. Sorry about that. But I wanted to show actually, it is a digipack with pictures, with everything, and I could have put like small booklets in here as well. But the one good thing is that the discs have these plastic holders, and I would argue that you could build plastic holders out of like other materials as well. But this is good because this keeps the disc a little bit safer. Now, when this is being transported, if they're not isolated properly, obviously the discs can jump from there as well. The disc holders can break and so on. But if they're kept and shipped and kept properly, I think they have a better chance of standing the test of time. Otherwise, I'm not unhappy with how these look. They're pretty nice. Okay, let's take a look. Anthology 1. The booklet is here. I've been told that the booklet is exactly the same as the one in the original release. The pictures, the details about the songs included, and so on. We're going to take just one of the discs from Anthology 1 out, and then we're going to just go to Anthology 4. So here we go. Same aspect as the original anthologies. You can actually double check that right now. Okay. Well, disc 1 for me from the original anthology did have some writing on it. Somebody wrote something with a Sharpie. But they look roughly similar. One thing that I can notice right away is that the apple on this is bigger, but the apple on this is a better quality print. Yeah. Actually, let's try and check Anthology 2 as well. Oh, well, I was talking about the holders being a good idea, and this one jumped out. But it's the same thing, so the apple was kind of bigger. Otherwise, the overall aspect is the same, and you still have the details here about copyright information and seeing the booklet for details. Obviously, the copyright information on this versus the original ones is pointing to 2025. Actually, one good thing to double check is people have said the booklet is exactly the same. Yeah, this seems pretty thick. Let's check the one in Anthology 1 for a second. Okay, this one, of course, has some yellowing happening. I don't know, in terms of thickness, they seem to be the same, so I'm just going to assume that the contents are exactly the same. There was no real reason for them to change things. Here it is, the first pages with the reference to Free as a Bird, and so on. The back is slightly different in that the 2025 one has some more production details on it versus the original one, which just had this plain Beatles Anthology 1 sort of fake sticker. And this is Anthology 4. Here's the full breakout. Actually, what we can do is have a small comparison, short comparison, between the looks of the vinyl version. Okay, the front cover is the same, more or less. What differs is the back a little bit. Obviously here they had to make the text a little bit more visible than it is here, but also the back, here it has this Derek Taylor liner notes. Here it just has Anthology 4 and the sort of wall and the bicycle that the original poster was set upon. Okay, I'm guessing the Derek Taylor notes might be in this booklet. Hoping they are. Anyway, yeah, here they are. And the picture of the big Anthology record. So just gonna flip through this real fast. So we're standing there, Money, This Boy, Tell Me Why, all the details about the takes that were used. If I Fell, Matchbox, every little thing. Very nice picture of George here. I Need You, Just Seen a Face, In My Life, Nowhere Man and John, Got to Get You Into My Life, and Paul, Love You Too, Strawberry Fields Forever, with these takes from the video, an alternate cover to Sgt. Pepper with She's Leaving Home, the instrumental take, Baby You're a Rich Man, All You Need Is Love, this picture that was from the session that was used for the Strawberry Fields Forever, I think, single, Paul, The Fool on the Hill and I Am the Walrus, Hey Bulldog, the entire group, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, with George, You're So Square Baby I Don't Care, Helter Skelter, I Will, Can You Take Me Back, Julia, The Rehearsal, The Get Back, Octopus's Garden, Don't Let Me Down, a top-down picture of the rooftop performance, You Never Give Me Your Money, with an alternate version of the Abbey Road cover, Here Comes the Sun, Something, Free as a Bird, Real Love, and Now and Then. This is a picture from the video for Now and Then from 2 years ago. And that is about it. I mean, the discs should be pretty much the same as the others. I hate this, so I'm gonna just take the second one out. Anyway, this is the one I'm gonna be testing most, just to compare now and then, and Real Love and Free as a Bird, of course. But first, this guy I'm interested too as well, because you know there are some extra songs in there. Okay, so I guess this is pretty much it. Anthology 4, Anthologies 1 through 3, and the box set with this extra outer cover, I would say, outer sleeve, and the Anthology 4 vinyl album. Now, this was the unboxing. As I mentioned as well during the unboxing part, from a visual perspective, from a sort of packaging perspective, I do like the new release, at least when it comes to the box set of the CDs that I have. You know, it looks fine, it's glossy, it came in good shape. This, you know, outer extra partial sleeve with the new picture is a nice touch. I think it's something that helps differentiate it from the old or the initial release of Anthology. Now, I've got this box set mostly because initially when you know the pre-orders came out and they announced it, there wasn't any announcement for Anthology 4 being released separately. And so it was kind of my only chance to own Anthology 4, and I really wanted to, not just because of being a completionist or something like that, but rather because it does have some content that I really wanted to own. It is possible that I would have gotten the box set regardless whether they announced Anthology 4 as a separate release or not, because also of the way that this is packaged and looks. You know, having a digipack next to the three you know, double jewel cases from the 90s wouldn't have looked as good. It wouldn't have mattered as much probably, but still, you know, it kind of makes sense that this is a complete package to be bought together. Now with the vinyl release, obviously it's a different story. I have the Anthologies 1 through 3 on vinyl. This looks very similar to those, so there's no like discrepancy. And anyway, you know, when it comes to vinyl, I don't see any big point for me in getting Anthologies 1 through 3 again. And now at this point, because I bought this separately, you know, there's fewer chances that I will ever buy the box set, because Anthologies 1 through 3 have not been re-released separately. So, you know, I'm fine with my choice. Also because I realized, you know, after listening to parts of Anthologies 1 through 3 from this new release, both on streaming and from the CDs, I've come to the conclusion that I don't really need Anthologies 1 through 3 again. The remastered versions, whether they have some new mixes in there or not, as some people have said, don't really make sense to me, you know, to have, because I don't think that they bring a lot more to the table than the initial releases. And this is what I wanted to also get to, talking a bit about how these sound. So first of all, after unboxing them, I also tested them as much as I could. They all sound fine, the CDs and the vinyl. The vinyl especially I need to mention because, you know, with vinyl there's always the risk of having scratches, scuffs, or things that are causing surface noise, or even clicks or pops or whatever. And you might have these kinds of sort of sound artifacts on even on new records. The latest release that I had from Optimal, unfortunately, which was part of, were some records part of the Mono collection from that summer, showed me that much, that even with Optimal there can be some bad quality control. Thankfully, this version of Anthology 4, at least for me, was in perfect shape. The records looked perfect when I unboxed them, as you've seen, but even under more scrutiny and putting them on the turntable, they sound absolutely perfect. There is almost virtually no surface noise. There's, you know, they are quite silent. The quality of the sound of the pressing is very good, and even the mastering, I would say it's really, you know, up to expectations. Now, if we're talking about mixes of Real Love, Free as a Bird, and even Now and Then, we'll get to talking about that in a few seconds. But otherwise, the production of the records themselves is really, really good. With the CDs, there was less of a chance of having issues. Of course, you can still have mastering issues or like manufacturing defects. Thankfully, it's not the case here. So all of these sound proper. In terms of the comparison between CD and vinyl when it comes to Anthology 4, to me, there's not much of a difference. Again, on my system, I perceive and I see the CDs having a bigger, sort of higher volume, but that's about the difference that I can see. I see the difference in between these less than on other previous releases that I've had both on CD and vinyl. So yeah, that's maybe an interesting thing, but otherwise that's the most that I can say about the difference between the two. To me, it seems like the volume on the CD is slightly bigger. I haven't used spectrographs or anything, but I don't feel like the sound on the CD is too loud or brick-walled, you know? And so in that case, in that scenario, it's all good. In any case, both the CDs and the vinyl sound perfectly fine to me. Now, when it comes to the remasters of Anthology 1 through 3, I like having these. I've listened to them. I don't see that much of a difference versus the original releases. What I noticed, and this is also listening through headphones, I try to listen more through headphones for some of these songs and listening to them on streaming, but also from my system. On streaming is a little bit better because I can switch very fast between different versions, so between a song from Anthology 1 2025 remaster versus that same song on Anthology 1 from 1995. And to be honest, I haven't noticed that much improvement that would require somebody to buy the new Anthologies 1 through 3. So if you are on the fence still, if you're thinking about maybe waiting for some promotion over Christmas or something, to buy at least Anthology 4 or maybe the whole lot, from my perspective at least, there is no good reason for somebody who owns Anthologies 1 through 3 to actually buy this. I don't think that the remasters of some of even the older songs, which sounded, quite rough on Anthology 1, I don't feel like they sound much better on this one, to be honest. What I did notice, and this is across the board for all of the three records, is that the sound seems to have been boosted. So the volume seems to have been boosted a little bit on the remasters, as well as the bass low end. I feel like bass and drums are just heard a little bit stronger in the mixes. I don't feel like there were quite, significant remixes. Maybe there were, but my ears are deceiving me. But my feeling was just that the most present boost on all three anthologies versus their original issues seems to be they are a bit louder, and low end seems to be a little bit boosted. Beyond that, there were a few things that I noticed on certain songs. So one thing that I was listening for was, especially on Anthology 1, where you have these older recordings of the song, so pre-EMI, pre-Abbey Road, and so on, where, the songs were, a lot of them, maybe less so the ones that they recorded with Tony Sheridan, those sounded pretty good, but the ones that were recorded like during concerts or whatever other home demos and recordings that they had, which obviously some of them sound pretty rough. And I listened especially for those on the new remasters because I wanted to see that maybe they used the MAL software to mix again those songs a little bit or clean them up more. And it didn't seem to me like that was the case. I again felt that they were boosted in volume. I felt maybe they were slightly sharper in sound, but that only, I don't think it improved a lot the instrumental parts or the vocal parts. Rather, what it did is it brought them closer to the listener, but at the same time, I think the sound artifacts, the crackles and all of the things on the tapes or whatever they were taken from, just became more present to me and sharper, sort of. That's my impression of that. Otherwise, I didn't see any huge improvement that is very significant, at least for those older recordings, especially on Anthology 1. Still, there were a few songs where some changes were noticeable, at least to me, and you can let me know if you have these and you've listened to them or listened to them on streaming and compared. Let me know if you felt the same. So for instance, on Anthology 2, just going to give a couple of examples. On Anthology 2, there's a recording of Help during a Blackpool concert which to me it seemed like on this remastered version sounded stronger and better. Now again, I said volume seems to have been boosted, low end, but here Help really seemed to me like it, you know, the remaster really made a difference. It did sound better on this version. Moreover, on Anthology 3, there were some changes which were even more present. So for instance, the increase that they did, this one at least, you know, there's one of the Get Back recordings that exists on Anthology 3 here, sounds way better here, but I think that's also because boosting, you know, the low end and the sort of the drums being heard better, and sort of the bass being heard better, you know, helps that song, because it's a song where these components of the track really are important, and they kind of bring, you know, they have the whole energy of the song for me. So maybe for that one it's not such a big surprise. But there were a couple of other examples where I felt like the changes were more significant. So two examples that stayed with me were Helter Skelter and Honey Pie, both on Anthology 3. For Helter Skelter, initially on the original release, it seemed like the vocals were rather centered. So if you would use headphones to listen to the song on Anthology 3, on the original release, you would, you know, if you take one headphone off, one bud off as it is today, you would still hear the vocals on the other side. Although they were leaning left, sort of, so it seemed like the left channel, the audio of vocals was stronger. It just seemed like it was relatively centered, because you could hear them also in the right channel pretty well. Now it seems like on this one, that thing has changed, and the vocals seem to have shifted a little bit more to the left, which is a little bit weird. Typically in remasters and remixes that happened in the past, I don't know, 10 years with the Beatles, or even before that, you know, the tendency was to actually bring vocals more to the center. So that was my impression. On the contrary, on Honey Pie, which is also on Anthology 3, it seemed like the opposite happened. So initially on the Anthology 3 from 1990s, the vocals were, although you could hear a faint vocal on the right as well, they were pretty strongly, at least for me, it seemed to be on the left. But now they seem to have been more centered, which is a little bit better. And the vocals sound closer to the listener, even when you listen to headphones. So yeah, aside from those things, again, there are other differences, but to me, nothing was so prevalent that I needed to talk about it. Maybe there are some songs which I missed to compare, because I didn't compare like all of them. That would have taken a long time. But still, there was nothing else that like really jumped at me that I felt I really needed a remastered version of this from the previous anthologies. But one thing that a lot of fans were waiting for after the technical developments of the past few years and the new mixes brought up by Giles Martin for a lot of the Beatles songs were new mixes of Free as a Bird and Real Love. That is because in the 90s they had a lot of trouble cleaning up John's vocals from the tape that they received from Yoko Ono, which contained those songs, and Now and Then. And as a result, the digital cleanup that they did in the 90s ended up with John's vocals on both Free as a Bird and Real Love sounding, a little bit ethereal and sort of ghostly, which, has its own charm. I think a lot of people got used to that sound and to that version of the songs. And so they are now kind of the definitive versions of the songs and vocals for them. Not everybody was craving for a more cleaned up vocal of Lennon's, but I wanted to have to hear his voice the way that I heard it on Now and Then. And so the cleanup happened. Now what I want to say is that I've had different experiences of listening to those vocals in headphones versus my system. And I have to say that initially Free as a Bird was announced when the anthologies were announced that they're going to be re-released. Free as a Bird was soon released as as a teasers to this new collection, and it was released online. So I've listened to it through streaming even back then, and it felt to me like John's vocals, although cleaned up, were brought a little bit more front in the mix, but not too much. I felt like still the instrumental part of the songs was kind of covering the vocals a little bit. Although I love the instrumentals of both Free as a Bird and Real Love, and the orchestration, I really like it. It feels both Beatles and 90s at the same time. to me. But, you know, I felt like I couldn't really hear John that well, or as much as I was expected. And now when I've listened to these on my system, the situation is different. And I compared again to listening through headphones on streaming. Now I know these are not two different versions. I'm starting to think that has to do a lot with how my phone, which is not an old phone by any means, you know, it has very good sound output. And the buds that I'm using are also good quality, so I'm not doubting that. It's just maybe the way that the sound is set up to come out, and sort of the equalizer, the default equalizer of how I listen through Apple Music or Spotify is different than what I have in my setup here. Because when I listen to the songs here, although I still feel like the vocals could be a little bit more uncovered, they sound pretty much fine. I can distinguish most of the words that are being said. Now, even with both cases, I still feel like bringing the vocals a little bit louder in the mix would have benefited the song, at least for my preference, right? I would have preferred to hear them better. There are people who have been saying in the past few days or weeks since these have been released, I think for both Free as a Bird and Real Love, that they actually prefer the initial ethereal quality, you know, the uncanny quality of the vocals that were used in the 90s. For me, that's not the case. I prefer them cleaned up, and some people have said as well that you couldn't have expected too much of these vocals because they were quite faint. You know, John Lennon was not recording in a studio or anything. He was just like playing around at home, recording a demo. But to me, that's actually more important, or one of the main reasons for why I would want those vocals heard better. I really like, and as they brought them forward in these mixes, I really like the vulnerability of them. I really like the, let's say, the honesty of those vocals, to be honest. So I really do prefer the cleaned up vocals. They don't sound in any way digital or metallic or anything like that. So the cleanup now is really, really good. I understand that it's digital, but they do sound quite natural, and I do like, again, the vulnerability of those vocals, the fact that they are not very strong vocals like he had on some original Beatles recordings or Lennon recordings. So I do prefer them. Now, when it comes to the versions of the songs that I would prefer to listen to, I would probably prefer the new Free as a Bird, but with Real Love, I'm a little bit split. So although I like this new mix, fine, as many have pointed out, there were pieces of the mix that were taken out for some reason. And some of those pieces were some guitar licks that George had put out, and they were coming, after many of the verses. And those were inexplicably absent from the new mix. A lot of people have pointed this online already. Some people are really outraged by it. I'm not really outraged. I'm just like curious and, slightly disappointed. They were not a part of the song that sounded bad or messed with the mix or whatever. They were really nice parts of the song. They were not coming over the vocals. They were always like post a verse, post a lyric. So I don't see why that happened. Maybe they will explain. Initially I thought maybe Giles Martin mixed these and so he missed something, or like there were pieces of tape that included those guitar licks that maybe got damaged or lost or whatever. I didn't know. But then I saw that actually Jeff Lynne mixed these again, now in 2025. So I'm wondering, he was a friend of George Harrison's. Why would he take those out? It's really puzzling. Not sure if it was a mistake or whatever it was. I hope we at least someday find out what was the reason for that. I'm doubting that we will get a fixed version of Real Love with, the full orchestration and the full, segments of guitar that George had put out in the 90s. Maybe we will get one online where people will use demixing technology that is widely available now and remix this. I'm sure we will get that. But yeah, otherwise, it was a really weird choice. And that's one thing that kind of, makes the new version of Real Love drop a little bit in quality versus the initial one. Otherwise, when it comes to Real Love, it's aside from being a mystery on why they kind of messed with the George parts from the song, when it comes to the vocal, I came to find out relatively recently there was another version of Real Love, a more acoustic version with Lennon himself. It's from this version of the Lennon Anthology, which is a box set or a set that was apparently released somewhere in the late 90s as well. And you have on this second CD of this box set, you have a version of Real Love, which I've listened to, and to me the vocals on this that Lennon has, they sound really, really nice, and it's a very, very cozy, you know, version that seems very close to the listener, and I kind of like that. I don't know if they use the same parts of the same takes or not. They could have used this very well, and to me, the Real Love vocals that Lennon has on this disc sound pretty fine. So they could have used those as well, I think. But anyway, aside from this, the new mixes seem okay. Again, to me, they sound slightly better and more balanced when I listen to them on a system versus headphones, which is a shame because I walk a lot outside and I listen to music a lot when I'm outside. And, you know, it'll be a shame to have to listen to the vocals being buried in the mix like that. Otherwise, the new mixes to me are fine. Again, I have this disparity of how I listen to them in speakers versus headphones, or at least on my phone. I'll probably try to tweak my phone a little bit to see if I can get them sounding closer to what I hear on my system, but otherwise they're fine. I don't really see the point of a new mix of Now and Then, to be honest. This was just created and mixed 2 years ago. I think it was fine. I don't see any point on that being changed. So when it comes to this new anthology, Anthology 4, I do feel like it's a significant addition to anyone's collection, especially if you have the first three. This is a good addition. It's true that the completely new things are few. There are some things on the records of Anthology 4, sorry, that are basically pieces that they just took from the deluxe editions that were released for some albums since 2017. But there are, you know, 12, 13 new pieces. You have these new mixes of Real Love and Free as a Bird, which have, you know, will have a significant place, I guess, in the Beatles discography. So I feel like getting Anthology 4 separately, if you have the other three, makes sense. Getting the full anthology, for me, both on vinyl or CD, mostly makes sense if you are like a hardcore collector, or if you are missing the anthology set completely from your collection, then yes, you can get them, and the new remasters are properly adequate. There's nothing that I see is worse on them significantly than it was on the initial ones, nor do I see anything that is significantly better, at least for me, on the new remasters versus the original anthologies 1 through 3. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about in this video is the re-release of the Anthology Documentary Series that was put out on Disney Plus in the past few days. That was remastered in 4K, and you know, it's also present in full HD if you either don't have 4K capabilities on your TV, or you have like the lower rate subscription from Disney Plus, which is only showing things in HD. So I want to talk about a few things related to this series. One is the video quality, so the enhancement and how that looks. Also the sound quality enhancement, because that also happened. Then I want to talk a little bit about the contents of the series that is on Disney Plus, because they are sometimes significantly different than the contents of the original series, at least the one that was released on DVDs and in this box set. And just to talk a little bit about how the legacy of the Beatles is now changing a little bit, or adjusting to this new world, to the new generations. The first thing that I want to go into is the quality of the restoration in Full HD 4K and the quality of the image, because that's one of the things that I was kind of waiting for, aside from like a physical release, which I'll get to near the end. But I was waiting for that because the only version that currently exists is a DVD version, you know, the one that is also on this box set from the 90s, which is perfectly fine. But, you know, nowadays with the quality of image and seeing what they did with Let It Be and with Get Back, it's a fair expectation to actually have that, since that's the most extensive, comprehensive Beatles documentary that there is. And I have to say that overall, the quality of the restoration is excellent. And it depends a lot on the footage. If you're looking at footage from the 90s, that tends to look nice and right colored and and pretty sharp and bright. So it's all looking very good. As good as it can, right? Depending on what it was filmed with at the time. There is some footage even from the 60s that looks absolutely excellent, whether black and white or not. The one that was especially filmed with actual film, like film they use for movies at the time, that tends to be more prone to being properly restored into or extended to 4K. There is footage which, if it was filmed with like beta cameras or whatever they used for television in the 60s, 70s, even later, that will tend to be less fitted for proper restoration because just the base quality is not great. It was made for just small TV screens at the time. But there are quite a few portions of things, even again filmed black and white in the 60s, that look excellent. The way that they kind of, some of the scenes looked in the restored 4K version of A Hard Day's Night. So that's really, really nice. Where it seems that there is a difference and a problem for me is that apparently they used AI to clean up some of these images and do the restoration. And I wouldn't have said that, but it became apparent when looking at the difference between scenes where the people in the scene, usually the Beatles, but not only them, are closer to the camera versus when they are further away, which to a certain extent it makes sense that any restoration would not be able to restore and to make, images where the Beatles are like 30 feet away, make them look like, something that you can zoom in 20 times and just see moles on their faces or whatever, right? So that's understandable. However, what actually I think happened, and it seems apparent from some of the clips I've seen, is that when you have the Beatles or whoever people in a scene that are kind of relatively close to the camera, not in close-ups, but kind of like I am now with half of my body, or even like the full body, but where the camera is just like that on them and the people are here, rather the camera being way back and the people being like this. When this is happening and they're relatively close, medium to close distance, the restoration is really good, and it tends to be higher quality. When they're a bit further away and they're moving, I have seen scenes where the Beatles do not look like the Beatles anymore, because it seems like AI was trying to fill in the gaps, trying to restore the picture and to enhance it, potentially upscale it or whatever, and it started putting things in places where they're not supposed to be, where one Beatles face like Paul or George's or John's face start either melting or becoming a different face of a person, because it seems like AI was trying to put a face where the image was too blurry to actually distinguish all of the features. So this was apparent to me, and please do let me know in the comments if you noticed the same thing. I've especially seen it in the first few episodes. I think first 3, maybe 4 episodes, where especially the footage was older with them in concerts, like the Washington and I think also on the Hollywood Bowl, and whatever concerts they were on stages, especially in America, but not only. I've seen this be more prevalent. So please do let me know if you notice this thing, but that's kind of jarring a little bit. So I think it's not a matter of using AI to clean up pictures, that's fine, but I think like maybe there were some things that they either knowingly left in because they said, we cannot do better, or it would have, the restoration was always going this way, so they tried multiple times, and at the same time AI was kind of doing the same thing, so they decided, okay, we cannot have a quarter of a scene look crisp and nice, and then just one part of that scene, a few frames, will be with the old footage because that at least looks natural. So they kind of left it in. I don't know what was the decision making behind this, or if they just like missed it and just like went through it. But for sure, it's really, really jarring sometimes to see that. Otherwise, restoration is fine and it looks very good. The sound was restored pretty nicely, and the sound to the Anthology series is more powerful, and it's more present in the documentary. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the actual content. So it seems that they took out quite a few scenes and pieces of interviews and such from all of the episodes. Initially the episodes were like the ones at least on the DVD set, I think they are around 75 minutes each or something like this. Like for instance, in episode 1 and 2 on the first disc, it's 79 minutes and 72 minutes. Episodes 3 and 4 are 73 and 71, and so on and so forth, right? And then on this last disc, you have an 81 minutes bonus episode with the like special features and such. So they took out quite a few scenes from each episode, making them now be 1 hour or less in most cases. That means 10-15 minutes per episode were taken out, which at a total of 8 episodes plus the 9th, but let's say the 8, which are like the base, the core of the documentary, right? Even on the box set. That would mean like maybe 2 hours, maybe more of content was taken out. Some of the content seems it was taken out because it was a little bit insensitive or not up with the current political correctness of the times. Some things I might just like in theory agree, some I do not. I think they should have left everything in because I don't think they were outright offensive, the Beatles, in some of the comments that they made. They were just like of the time. And I think, maybe some of the comments they made could now be considered insensitive overall. But at the same time, again, they are a product of the time. That is the full thing that they did. Even that was quite curated, right? The initial documentary is not like all bare bones all the time, right? It's has an overall positive tent and so on. So, they could have just left things in. The new generations just need to get used to the thing that not all people are perfect, and that we sometimes say things which maybe are insensitive, but we are not overall insensitive people or bad people. So, I think like cutting this kind of stuff is kind of I don't know if it had to do with Disney or not, but it's really, I don't know, it just leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth. But at the same time, the flow of the documentary is not broken necessarily. If you have seen the original one many times, probably exactly like with the music, you are used to a certain flow, to certain moments being in certain places, but you're kind of going to feel that break. But otherwise, if you're looking at the documentary with fresh eyes, I feel it looks nice, it sounds nice, and it flows pretty nicely. Aside from that, I wanted to talk a little bit as well about the last episode, which was the supposedly extra episode with unseen footage, and there is some footage that at least I haven't seen before. There's quite a lot of footage in there that I have seen, either on the special features on the box set or online, because there were like director cuts online for some of the episodes. So I've seen a lot of it, but not all of it, obviously. There's enough in there to be new. I liked it. What I did, again, making this whole thing shorter to me did not really make sense. I know the logic of it is either taking out things that are not, again, considered to be politically correct or sensitive nowadays, which fine, I can understand at least part of that. And part of it was probably to make it more appealing and digestible to a newer audience, to newer generations, which I understand the concept, and it does help with some of the music where they are boosting certain things in new mixes to make them more appealing to modern ears. But at the same time, I feel like the Beatles, uniquely so, maybe there are a few other artists, but uniquely so, can be appealing to audiences no matter the generation and the age if they just hear the songs in the right setting at the right time. And their presence on screen as well, if you're watching them for enough time, you can get a good idea of what made them appealing to people. And I think this documentary did a good job, especially with the first few episodes in the Beatlemania, to see how big of an impact they had at the time. But there are other documentaries as well. So I don't think you're going to attract Gen Zers with a documentary that has 9 episodes. They're going to be attracted to those episodes because they see them be 50 minutes or 61 minutes or whatever, and they would have felt less so for 9 episodes that were 71 minutes. I think that's not necessarily the thing. If you wanted to do that and make things appear shorter, you should just let the whole content in and spread make more episodes, like make it a series of 15 episodes instead of 9 or whatever. So to me, I understand what they did. This is what they seem to have used as a mindset to try to make this more appealing and digestible to newer audiences. I don't think that really fully accomplishes that, and they could have accomplished the same by keeping the entire thing in, but that is just my opinion. Please do let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. otherwise, the most complete version of the documentary, unfortunately, still remains the one on this DVD box set. You will have the full 8 episodes with, the most uncut version that you can have on an official release, plus again a full disc of extra footage, special features, that is another 80 some minutes of footage. Online on YouTube you can also find some extra footage versus this, like director cuts of some of the episodes or some of the footage, and that's about it. It is unfortunate that they didn't reproduce all of this in full HD or 4K. What I did like that they included was more footage from the sessions for the songs in the 90s. We really wanted that, and it's a good idea that they put it in. They could have done a little bit better, I think, but that is the situation. If you want the most extensive version of this documentary, at least for the main 8 episodes, this is still, unfortunately, the go-to product. Last thing before we close is a few words about physical releases. Especially of the documentary in this case. Obviously, the chances for this are pretty slim if we look at the history from the past few years. Get Back documentary was released sort of rushed and very basic on Blu-ray, and apparently Apple did not make enough money or did not make money on that. Let It Be obviously was not released on a physical format since it was put out last year. And for this documentary, I think the chances are also slim. Obviously, I think a lot of Beatles fans and collectors would love to have a full physical release of the Beatles Anthology with full episodes if possible, not the cut ones, with some fixes to the restoration where it was a little bit wonky probably because of AI, with all of the special features, the last episode, the 9th episode that they put on Disney Plus, but also the special features that were included on this box set back in the 90s, 2000s. That would be possibly one of the greatest Beatles releases, at least in video format, that are out there. But obviously, again, the chances for that are quite slim. So because of that, I guess the best that we can have right now is this. It's the most complete version. Extra, you can have, the 9th episode that was put on Disney Plus, if you can get it somehow. But then, otherwise, you're always going to be split between having a pretty nice quality video and audio on the Disney documentary, but less scenes, having the 9th episode on Disney Plus, which has some extra scenes, but it's cutting some stuff, and then having this, which is relatively the most complete version of the documentary. I was thinking that what would have been really nice would have been a huge anthology package with everything in it, the book, the documentary, and the music, either in CD or vinyl format. But obviously we're not going to get the documentary. It's very slim chances for what I'm saying. It's very slim chances. Probably would have been a relatively expensive package, but a nice one nonetheless. The one thing that I'm starting to lose hope for is at least the Rubber Soul deluxe box set. The anniversary has passed. It was this year. Since they didn't announce it and release it this year, there will be no more 60th anniversary. If they decide to still release that, especially with the new full mix of the album, the new stereo mix of the full album, that's something that I think still a lot of Beatles fans and vinyl and CD collectors are hoping for. But as years go by, our hope, I think, grows thinner. Well, that was about it for today. I want to thank again everybody who subscribed to the channel, people who are interacting with me constantly via the comments, the discussions and conversations that we have, and the information that I learn from you, are all priceless. Thanks to all people who also like and share the videos and so on. Please do let me know in the comments your opinions on the new anthology remasters of 1 through 3 compared to the original ones, the new mixes of Real Love and Free as a Bird, your opinions on Anthology 4 and on the documentary. I want to thank again everyone for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time.